Holdfast Frontlines is finally here, but is it any good? Holdfast Nations of War was a Napoleonic Wars multiplayer game. Clans would come together to fight line battles, defend sieges, or take to the seas on naval warfare ships. But recently, the developers Anvil Studios has bought out one of the biggest overhauls for free, taking the Napoleonic Wars into World War I. And this is more game-changing than you would ever think. This is Holdfast Frontlines. Now, I did make a starting video on this when it was first initially announced on some of the basic info we had, but now it is out and it is free to anyone that owns Holdfast already, and my has had a massive impact. Already, Holdfast Nations of War has peaked its maximum player count. Yeah, years after its actual release, now this expansion has taken it to new heights that it was never at before. Holdfast was always kind of popular, but it was still a bit of a niche game. You could mostly find a full server and get a lot of people on there, especially at event times. However, it's still sort of in this historical setting that hasn't really broken into the mainstream just yet. But this World War I expansion pushed it over that 3,000 concurrent player caps that it had never really done before this time. But what does this expansion bring in? Well, as mentioned, you'll be fighting as the coalitions of the First World War, the Allied and Central. You will have authentic troops and weaponry and fighting across 7 new maps and battlegrounds. I've had the chance to play a good few hours on it to get a good first impressions of what this is actually like, how well it's implemented, and what new additions and changes, and perhaps some things that I would like to see improved in the future. The first big thing to talk about are the classes, all authentically recreated from the factions at the time, most notably the British, the French, the Germans, and so on. You have Infantry Officers. These were a part of Napoleonic Wars Holdfast, yet they have quite a bit more to do in this version. Of course, they'll be leading squads. Whereas in Holdfast, you lead an entire line of infantry or musketeers. This is a bit different. Now you'll be leading certain squads that all have their different roles, being able to do the basics of ordering troops into different places, being equipped with a quick-firing revolver that is great at short range and fast firing when you're breaching into buildings if needed. Additionally, there are now grenades in the game, and officers carry a variant of the smoke grenade, providing cover for any advances over the trenches that you can scale upon. The officer can blow their whistle and troops can climb the ladder over the top, and it is an awesome experience. I can't wait to see the cinematics that come out of this game for some events that are brought into the new Frontline expansion. Each class not only has different equipment, but they also have traits. For example, the officer has Resilient, a strong sense of duty. Melee damage dealt to you by other players is reduced by 15%. And this kind of theme is carried on between all the classes. Next, you have the basic Rifleman, however. Of course, this is pretty self-explanatory. Often armed with a Lee Enfield on the British side, they have much better accuracy and are dealing damage at long range. Of course, this is a little bit different to Holdfast, just the nature of the weaponry. Muskets would have 1 shot before taking time to reload. In here, you get 3, 4, 5 shots at once before you have to reload your rifle, so you're able to give off fire much faster. Bear in mind, there's still bolt action, however. Equipped with a rifle and hand grenades, you're going to be the ones charging into battle over the top. Furthermore, you have the medic going around the field, healing troops, giving buffs to commanders nearby, reducing the damage dealt by them as one of their abilities. You have the engineer who's able to place down sandbags and defenses in placements. There are MGs scattered around that you can put down, and of course, build up walls in order to hold certain positions. And finally, the Artilleryman. I think perhaps at this point, one of the least used, at least in public games, but something that will become much more integral to competitive clan battles, being able to operate various artillery pieces that are scattered around the map. They are incredibly powerful and can really be one of the biggest game changers in this title. You see, the expansion really does focus on trying to immerse you in that World War I experience, and artillery is just one of those things. Whether it is a howitzer or a mortar, they can all be used for certain situations. Additionally, when you have emplacements, there are machine guns, incredibly fast firing, but also rather inaccurate. You're gonna have to do a lot of burst fire unless the enemy are pretty close, because you'll be scattering literally everywhere. A new addition, as mentioned, are grenades. They can be very, very deadly. However, I do think the animations and the sounds for the grenades there's something to be left desired. Some new other features as well are squad camps, being able to put down spawn positions for your troops and your teammates. Something a little bit similar along the lines of garrisons or outposts in Hell Let Loose, being able to push in advance and change where your friendlies spawn. But we've seen all that. Let's take a look at some of the new maps. Artillery do shape the maps in a massive way. Big destruction of buildings is possible if getting good shots in artillery is your thing. The battlefields themselves are good, but I still think there's a lot less variation than I perhaps would have liked. Tanks are scattered around, but they are just set decoration. I was hoping that they might be more than that, but unfortunately you're not really able to use them. Maps like St. Peter's and Countryside, even to an extent Mansion, feel very similar. They are separate maps in their own rights, but they do use a lot of the same assets, giving them, not that much variation when you're actually playing. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to play Wasteland yet, which looks to be one of the coolest typical trench warfare maps, but how that's going to work within Holdfast itself is something to be seen. Public matches, people do tend to work together, but in terms of recreating how World War I actually played out, I think that's going to be for the clan battle matches rather than what you're going to expect from just public battles. And finally, there is also some things that don't just come to the Frontlines map, but Holdfast in general. There's been a complete graphical remaster, recrafting the environments, giving that more 2022 feel. They changed the 50+ maps that are already in the game, introducing new weather presets such as snowstorms, sandstorms, and of course better volumetric lighting. I think it is a really great and not necessarily needed improvement, but it's nice to have anyway. I don't think Holdfast looked particularly bad, but it just looks even better now, especially when you're charging into the lines. On a wider note, Holdfast in general has now up to 250 players per server. Yep, it is getting pretty mental. It's pretty much up to the standard of what Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars was at during the end of its life, so I think Holdfast has just about caught up with that. This frontline expansion though adds so much to the game. It adds a complete overhaul in a completely new time era, something that we probably would never see from many other titles. The dedication that the developers have put into this is beyond incredible, and that it's free speaks wonders about their passion for this game. There is a DLC that you can buy. It is £5.19 I think on Steam, and it just adds in the American Forces DLC. Lets you play as the 103rd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Marine Officers and Rifleman skins. It also gives you the Springfield rifle and is a fun little DLC, but of course it's basically just a skin on the already cool units that you have, so it's very much not necessary. If you're into role-playing stuff though, £5 is I think a reasonable price for a new faction within the game if you're into that role-playing and you want to play as the American Forces during World War I. Despite the praise I've given, it isn't without its issues. One of the main things for me definitely is the variation of maps. I tend to be playing mostly the same kind of things with just open grasslands and a few buildings in there. Is it fun? Yes. But in the 5 to 10 hours I played of this first impressions of the DLC at the moment, I've not really got the chance to play any of the cool stuff like Foxhole and Wasteland. I've had a tiny bit of time on them, but most of the maps just seem to be revolving around St. Peter's and Countryside. But that might just be my bad luck. Additionally, sounds aren't great within the game. The sound design in Holdfast was always just fine. It doesn't need to be anything spectacular, but I think when translated to World War I guns, it doesn't quite feel like the guns have the impact. They feel quite weak when you're actually shooting them, but I guess that's something that might have been a conscious decision, especially since this is so focused on clan warfare. Having people with massive beaming rifles going off along the trenches next to you in clan battles could be deafening, but hey ho, of course, that's just completely my opinion. But have you played Holdfast Frontline DLC at the moment? What do you think of it? Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't. Yet until then, I will see you in the next one.